Hello, happy Friday. Welcome to For Book's Sake. I am Heather Roberts.
And I am Veronica Adams, and we are 1852 Media.
Yes, indeed. And today we are going to talk about contracts. Isn't that sexy? But truly, contracts in a sexy term, in a sexy way, in the romance way.
Sexiest contracts you'll ever have.
It's true. It's true. But this all stems about because of the major controversy that has come to light this week with Joe Arden, who is the pen name of a narrator for audiobooks.
Yes.
Very well known narrator. He co owns a company called Blue Nose Productions, I believe, with his wife, and was the president of that company until just this past week, where he has stepped down due to these allegations. However, obviously his wife, he still co-owns the company with his wife.
Right.
So
Ew.
that's, yeah, take that for what it is. But there are some pieces we could talk about the allegations, and I think we can mention certainly what they are.
Definitely do a summary of those before we really dive into it. But
Yeah. But I think what we really want to focus on is, the contracts and what was so problematic with some of his business practices,
yes.
and sort of what's problematic with, just that type of stuff that can happen in the industry in general and how you can protect yourself from it.
Yes.
I think that's a good intro for what we're about to talk about.
Absolutely. There are a lot of opinions and there's a lot of drama about this situation. I think it's important that we state unequivocally that
We are stating facts. We
Yes.
are stating what has been alleged.
Yes, we are going to do our best to use that word as often as we need to today, because there are a lot of allegations out there, and there's been Joe has issued a statement, which is, if you ask me, basically just a fancy way of admitting and also gaslighting everyone at the same time.
Yeah, my opinion as well.
But there's a lack of documentation. There are, as far as I know, still no people who have openly stepped forward in terms of making allegations and then identifying themselves, which is not to say that you cannot make allegations and remain
correct anonymous. And not to say that the allegations are not true.
Exactly.
We simply, for legal purposes, we are stating allegations and our opinions on this subject matter.
Yes.
Smile.
And are going to do our best to deal as much as possible in the facts and the facts alone.
Yes. So what the controversy is essentially that Joe has, so he's the owner of this audiobook production company. There are allegations about the contract, which we'll get into because I think that that's a longer conversation. But there's also allegations about him acting inappropriately with authors who a majority, if not all, were women.
Yes.
Claiming that there was, sexting conversations, that inappropriate conversations, that they felt, these anonymous allegations are saying that they felt coerced into having with him.
Yes.
That they felt gaslit then later when, he would change the topics very quickly on them.
Right.
He would coerce them into sending nude photos. He would play hot and cold and, just really trying to manipulate. They felt manipulated. I think that that's the best way.
I think there are also some allegations that he would ask authors as part of, I guess, contract negotiations or like getting to know the work in question, like the book that he's going to narrate. He would ask the authors to very quickly describe some of the steamy, sexier scenes in the books to get them to talk about that particular content from the books. And I think there is an author out there who has come forward and said that she declined to do that. And the response she got from him was pretty abusive.
Right. There's other allegations that he just essentially is incredibly egotistical. that he thinks very highly of himself. There was interactions that were talked about being had at different conferences,
Yes.
where he badmouthed a lot of other authors that he has done work for.
Yeah.
That he, pretty much would badmouth anybody that he came in contact with, unless you were the person that he was talking to. It was one of those situations,
right,
that he just, didn't have a nice thing to say about a lot of people, and made people very uncomfortable, creepy, and then obviously the allegations regarding the inappropriate, that were inappropriate in a sexual nature. And then when he was confronted about, the fact that he was married at one point, the allegation is that he, doubled down, and it turned into a very heavy sexting conversation. And, that's that. His statement does
yes.
not, I'll read a statement.
Please, yes, I think it's very important that we just put the entire thing out there.
To the authors, readers, and listeners who have welcomed me into this audiobook community over the past decade, I want to address the recent anonymous allegations that have been leveled against me. While I'm not perfect, I categorically deny these accusations, and I'm working through the ramifications privately. I've never engaged in non-consensual, coercive exchanges with anyone. To those who criticized aspects of my character, I am a flawed person and am always trying to learn and grow. I appreciate your grace as I continue to listen and work to improve. I am incredibly grateful for the support I have received throughout my career. So, to Veronica and I, to our trained ear, if you will,
yes,
it is of our opinion that this is essentially an admittance and an apology, because he says, I deny these accusations, but then in the next sentence says, I've never engaged in non-consensual coercive exchanges with anyone.
Right. That's
which
a very,
tells me,
very telling distinction.
Yeah, that tells me that you've engaged in what you believe to be consensual exchanges with people.
Yes.
And you working through ramifications privately tells me that you are having issues now in your marriage, because these things have come to light, and they are, at least have an ounce of truth to them,
right,
that you are speaking inappropriately in some way. Yeah.
Okay, back in the old days, the before times when we were attorneys.
The before times.
In the before times when we were both still lawyers, I would have had a field day cross-examining this statement in deposition or on the stand, period.
Yeah.
Like, there is so much, the choice, there's so much implied and so much that can be inferred here.
Yeah, I mean, he says, I'm a flawed person.
Right.
So that's essentially an admittance that,
Yes.
okay, I've come across as
Perhaps I've
creepy and
done something that I
inappropriate.
shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe, what did you do that you shouldn't have?
Exactly.
You deny the accusations, but also you're a flawed person?
You deny the accusations, but also then you made sure to say that nothing was done that wasn't consensual.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And now you're dealing with things privately, and the ramifications privately between you and your wife, who was probably caught completely off guard.
I don't know who this woman is, but God, do I feel for her.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's been any allegations that she's ever acted unprofessionally, or that she knew that this was going on, or anything like that. So,
like, imagine standing behind a guy who wants to go out in public and walk around like he's Bane from Batman with his mask on, like he's cooler than everybody else. And then to have him just publicly embarrass you like this.
Yeah.
Both in business and as his partner in life. I mean, I have a lot of empathy for her.
They should have hired somebody to write their statement for Blue Nose Audio, because it's not good. And it sounds like she's doubling down behind him. So that part isn't good.
they've made very good money, and she stands to lose a lot because of what he's done, or what he has been alleged to have done, I should say.
So Blue Nose Audio's statement is, beloved audiobook community, we appreciate your patience as we have navigated management updates. Sorry, that sentence. I can't. Management updates. Effective immediately, Joe Arden has stepped down as president of this female-led company. We at Blue Nose Audio work collaboratively with authors to give them a voice in the creation of their books. We offer authors a full range of options in structuring their audiobook contracts from per finished hour models to royalty share options. We're going to dive into that.
Yes.
To date, we have created happy, successful relationships with authors that have permitted Blue Nose Audio to grow solely by author referrals. We are terribly disappointed by false and anonymous allegations recently posted on social media that paint an inaccurate picture of Blue Nose Audio's positive and artistically fulfilling relationships with our authors and narrators. Blue Nose Audio remains dedicated to supporting this industry and its talented narrator and independent author communities. Yeah. Not a great statement. Just from a PR perspective.
Yeah, no,
from a crisis
terrible.
management perspective, that is not a great statement. You know, in the first sentence, emphasizing that it's a female-led company when it is very well known this is a co-owned company between husband and wife. To then put that has the face of it has been the husband, and to then put the emphasis on the wife.
Brilliant marketing on their part, like from the get-go, right? Like the demand is Joe's narration skill. Like,
yes,
listeners, readers, book lovers have responded so well to his talent, his artistic talent in narrating these stories. Like, there's a reason their business grew the way it did.
Yeah.
There's a reason they have the portfolio they do.
But then to say in this statement, essentially, that he is inconsequential almost, that this is a female-led company and he's almost inconsequential to the success of this company is just patently false.
Well, it's insulting to actual female-led businesses and female-owned businesses, and also it's degrading to Joe. He's not man of the hour right now, obviously. Like, he's persona non grata at the moment, but also his talent, among other things, is why the company has been successful.
Yeah, it's what built that business. So I perhaps I've no doubt that she's very involved behind the scenes and all of that. But to that sentence just rubbed me the wrong way. You didn't start strong.
Yeah, it's double speak with respect to respecting women and believing victims and the fundamental principles of third wave feminism and the basic idea that everyone should have the option to consent, right? The right even to consent. And it plays off of his personal statement about not engaging in any exchanges that were non-consensual, right? Like, they're really trying to push we are a progressive feminist company here. Like, look at us, women, consent.
Right.
To me, it comes off as completely insulting and just absolutely
very tone deaf,
devoid of any substance. Yeah, totally tone deaf.
Totally tone deaf. So let's get into this paragraph where we talk about the full range of options in structuring their audiobook contracts from per finished hour models to royalty share options. So this is the meat and potatoes of one of the biggest things that we find an issue with, you know, that has substance that we know definitively is true. And not to say that these other allegations are not, I'm not trying to discredit the other allegations.
Yeah, absolutely not.
We just have definitive, you know, evidence of these contracts that exist. Although I think Joe's statement essentially said that the allegations were true. But anyway.
I mean, not only that, but also like other people have already very articulately summarized everything that's happening and have put their own editorial spin on it. We don't need to do that for you guys. You can
You guys can go and watch them.
Search his name on TikTok and just see what pops up.
Pops up.
Please.
So yeah, we are certainly not trying to discredit that portion of it at all, but this is something that we think business-wise is very important to highlight for business purposes. So when you're going into an audiobook contract, you can usually do a couple of different types of contracts. One is the per finished hour. So that is when you are paying for the audiobook production outright. You are coughing up the money for the narrator, for the production fees. PFH is per finished hour. So oftentimes you'll see it talked about in PFH.
Yes.
And those are expensive.
Yes.
They are, we've talked about this before, audiobook contracts, when you are producing them, paying for the production of them, they are not cheap. We are talking about at the cheapest end.
Several $1,000s.
$3,000 to $4,000 at the cheapest end. At the most expensive end, $15,000.
Probably, maybe more.
Maybe more.
Depending on your narrator.
Depending upon the art, the talent that is involved.
And the length of the novel that's being narrated too. I mean.
So Joe Arden has made a name for himself in the narration world. He has a following.
Yes.
And he has no doubt been able to charge a premium for his voice, for talent.
Sure.
So if you're doing a PFH contract, it's probably going to be at the much higher end with Blue Nose Audio if you are getting Joe Arden to narrate your book.
Yes.
Nowadays, no. But when you were at his height, at his peak.
Yes.
They then started offering a separate type of contract because admittedly, they're missing out on a market. Right? They're missing out on a market of people who don't have that capital.
Exactly. Not everybody is in the position to pay upfront PFH. Like, it's just not feasible for every author and every brand.
So in order to make them more accessible, but also provide, potential lucrative nature in the future, they offer a different style of contract. And that style, my understanding is that they would accept they would do the production.
Yes.
And then you, as the author, would receive a 20% royalty for all the sales.
Right.
In perpetuity. And that is key. So the contract was for 7 years. Okay. So you had to leave your book up for 7 years. That as part of the contract. They received 80% of the proceeds. You received 20% as the author. At the end of that 7 years, though, if you wanted that book taken down, you could have it taken down. But you don't get those files returned to you.
Yes.
They own those files.
That's right. You have sold your audio rights to them as part of your royalty share agreement to have the book produced and distributed in the first place.
And I'm not sure. I don't know if it's an exclusive situation. I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
Whether you could have them taken down after 7 years and then go reproduce your audio rights. That I don't think legally, excuse me, you would sell it to them forever. To transfer the copyright of that. Like,
I have seen some comments and posts that indicate it's both. So I think it's still unclear, like, what's actually in those.
That's why I've seen that.
And it's possible that they've done both. That Blue Nose has done both types, where they have bartered for a lifetime right to the audiobook version of this title, which, I mean, in contract law is completely possible.
It's possible.
And also the idea that maybe after 7 years, you do have the right to get the rights back for either a fee or they just sunset and are returned to you.
And then you can go have it redone somewhere else or do a PFH somewhere else and then produce it yourself or what have you. But that is the issue here.
Yep.
That essentially I've seen both talked about as well. So I'm not sure what exactly the contract said in regards to that. But regardless, you have a situation where you don't get that file. I mean, you don't ever get the file. So they produce the audio rights. They own it and they put it out for 7 years. You only get 20% and you're never seeing that again.
Yeah.
So it does. Yeah.
I've seen some comments And these are just, these are people off the cuff in their feelings, talking on social media as they do about how they reached out and just inquired about the possibility of having their audiobooks produced with Joe as the narrator. And they were essentially told, this is what you get, take it or leave it. It will boost your ebook sales, even if you never make a dime off of our audio.
Right. And they weren't even offered a PFH option.
Right.
That they were pushed into the royalty split option.
Yeah.
And that is another issue that,
right. If those allegations are true and that's the way they were conducting business.
Yeah.
Yikes
it's not great.
Yeah.
It's not great. So, I mean, as an author, if you're listen, audiobook for everybody isn't always lucrative. Some people, it is very lucrative. And so you'll hear stories like, oh my God, I made this much money off my audiobooks. Like, you need to go get your audio done. And then you feel all this pressure to go and get your audio done. And you go and get it done. And then yours sell like nothing. And you're 7 years in, you haven't even recouped the cost of producing the audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
That is not an uncommon tale, unfortunately, because not everybody's audio rights sell. Like not everybody is as marketable in an audio market.
Right.
As other titles.
You have to understand whether or not your genre, or if you're in a broad literary genre, your subgenre, or your, whatever.
Right.
Really has an audio listenership, an audience out there to even market to, first and foremost. And then beyond that, not all audio production is equal, right? I mean, unfortunately, people like Joe Arden, they develop these fan bases because they have a specific talent that, in this particular case, women who listen to romance audiobooks respond to, because it heightens the experience of listening to a romance audiobook.
Yeah. He has a great voice. There's no doubt.
Totally different than, say, someone who's narrating and producing for ACX, right? It's just a different level of talent.
Correct.
And that's not to besmirch people who narrate for ACX. It's just it's a supply and demand thing, right?
Right. It's a marketplace. That's how it is.
Yes.
And there is a reason that he had a following. There is a reason that there's other male audiobook narrators who have a following. And to be fair, I don't really listen to audiobooks. Like, that's not really my jam. I prefer to read on my Kindle.
Yeah.
I even prefer that over reading paperbacks, but mostly because you have to carry it around and it's the whole thing. Yeah. I end up dog-earing pages because I'm a monster. I know.
I can't believe you just admitted that.
I admitted it. You know what? It's fine.
Shame on you.
Come at me. I dog-ear pages. They're my books. Whatever. They're my babies. Anyway.
Heard it here first.
You heard it here.
Scandalous episode of For Book's Sake ever.
I know. Did you know that I was going to admit my biggest kept secret in books? I dog-eat pages. But there are several audiobook narrators who are male who I do enjoy more than others.
Yes.
And more than other women audiobook narrators as well. So when I do go to listen to an audiobook, I will oftentimes gravitate to those one or two narrators, simply because I like their voice is very soothing to me. It's just, I enjoy their presentation.
Yeah.
There are some women narrators as well that I enjoy their presentation, but it's a handful because I don't really listen to audiobooks all that much.
Right.
But there are some people who are very into it, that's how they read books and consume books, is by listening to audiobooks. Yes. I don't.
And the narrator would be as important or more important to them than the author in some cases.
Absolutely. And I 100% recognize that. And that's why this has become such a big thing, and why narrators can oftentimes make or break an audiobook, which is why he can charge a premium and why they got so popular and all of that. So this is just a disaster from like all the way around.
Completely.
But separating out the contract issues, these are things that you really need to look for. Do not let yourself be duped into signing a contract that gives away all of your rights.
Yeah.
Especially forever.
Yeah.
And never do that.
A lifetime
Ever.
transfer of the ownership of the audio rights is just like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the possibility that happened to any author.
I hope not. I sure hope not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even still, only receiving 20% of the royalties for 7 years on a product that you're never going to own is also not a great deal.
No, not even a little bit.
It's really not. A lot of times you'll get a deal like that. 20% is not a bad, like that's not a bad standard. But at the end of the 7 years, you get the rights to that file. Yes. The rights are then transferred to you, and then you can go and upload that file wherever you'd like.
Yeah, or you get to take control of the distribution.
Correct. Or if things are going well, you can re-up, and you don't want to mess with it, you can re-up. That is how it normally works. But that is not the understanding that we have been given from seeing this, that essentially you don't get any rights to that title, and or you have sold your rights, your audio rights for that title forever.
Yeah. I also think that we really need to like touch on the way in which authors get hurt by situations like this.
Yeah.
Because there are a large number of authors who have audiobooks recorded by Joe.
Yeah.
And now there's an entire community of readers who consume indie published books who are now boycotting audiobooks or returning audiobooks because Joe narrated them, and they believe the anonymous allegations, and they want to support the victims who have made their statements. The problem with that is it only hurts the authors.
It hurts the authors.
Financially.
Yeah, financially. And I understand how you don't want to also support Blue Nose Audio, right? Because
of course.
if you buy that audiobook, you are supporting both the author and the audiobook production company.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going to receive royalties from that. I get it. But also, if you don't listen to, then the author's royalties go down too, and they're in a worse position. So this is a terrible lose-lose situation. Yes. And the author is not in a position, as we just described from the contracts that we believe many of these people have signed, to take their audiobooks down. They cannot, just break their contract and go off.
Ha! But to that end, I mean,
that is
Heather's correct. However,
but this brings up a good point.
Yes, Heather's absolutely correct. Most authors are not just in a position to be like, hey, I'm, give me my audiobook back. Yeah. Depending on the terms of their contract, they might not be able to.
Right.
So you're really hurting their bottom line by engaging in these returns and the boycotts. To the extent that you've already purchased the audiobooks, like...
Right.
Keep them. Don't take that money back out of the author's pocket, because that's what's going to happen. But for authors, okay, legal disclaimer, right? Heather and I are not your attorneys, and this is not legal advice.
Correct. However,
you can insist on having a morality clause. Yeah. Or something similar in every contract you ever negotiate for any kind of 100%. Rights related to your book. So that if something like this happens and anyone involved in an audio, a film, or any other reproduction of your intellectual property does something like this that reflects badly on your brand too, because you've done business with them, you can then have some sort of repercussion in the contract where you are protected and you get your intellectual property back and you have the right to have it reproduced elsewhere.
Yep. And you can also put in a kill fee. Yes. And if you don't want a morality clause, if you just want to say, I want a kill fee and I have to pay you X amount of dollars to buy you out of this contract before it's over, you can do that too. You can have both.
I think you should have both. Personally.
I think you should have both. That protects you the most, and it gives you options, because for a kill fee you can use for any reason whatsoever. Yep. You never know what happens, but
you just got to write the check and you get to do whatever you need to do.
And it's obviously not going to be cheap, but sometimes that's worth it.
For sure.
But with a morality clause, 100% you need one of them. We have one in our contract with our clients.
We do.
We 100% do, because we've seen things, and, you need to have that in there. And we always tell our clients that we hope to walk with you through a crisis, but in the event that we do not feel that we can walk with you through the crisis, we need this clause so that we can extricate ourselves, because sometimes there are things that we could not, walk with you through.
Yes.
Because we've seen things.
And one of the funniest authors on social media decides to let the cat out of the bag that you've plagiarized her work from 5 years ago. We're no longer representing you.
Yeah, we're not walking with you through that crisis.
No.
So, yeah. And we need that morality clause, because otherwise we are engaged to help you promote your titles that were, if they were plagiarized, for example, in the example you just used. That's not something we want to do, but we would be contractually obligated to do it. And so that's why you need a morality clause, friends. You need one. It protects you. And frankly, they should want one too, as an audiobook narration.
Absolutely. And
company.
My guess is, because you and I have not actually seen any of these contracts, but my guess is
we've just heard about them.
There probably is a morality clause in most of these agreements that benefits the production company, but does not speak to the author's right to
That's probably
invoke
true.
the clause in the reverse.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. Because the production company doesn't want to continue to have to sell, distribute, or even finish production on any work by an author who, I mean,
Well, if it was plagiarized, certainly they'd have an out then, because you have to, in these types of contracts, it is a very standard. We were told that it was a very standard agreement for most things. It's standard that you have to say that you have, it's all your intellectual property. Yes. So if there's a plagiarism situation, obviously you've breached contract because it's not your intellectual property. Yes. But yeah, these allegations there's been authors publicly coming out about these particular allegations who've been attaching their names to it. That's what we meant in the beginning, where we were saying that there's more evidence about these than the anonymous allegations. Not that we, again, do not believe the anonymous allegations. That's all we're saying.
No.
Just authors are speaking more publicly about these allegations than the other ones.
I am personally bothered on a certain level by the fact that the sexual allegations, the sexual harassment allegations have remained anonymous, but also I absolutely believe the people who have made them.
And I understand why they have. Yes. Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. The whole thing is terrible, frankly. And you need to protect yourself in this industry. If you find yourself in a situation with somebody who, you're a newer author and you're dealing with somebody who has a big name like Joe Arden, and inappropriate things that you think are inappropriate start coming across your keyboard, you need to tell somebody about that. You need to stand up for yourself. You need to say no. Don't feel coerced. Do not give in to these egocentric,
Also, take screenshots and keep receipts.
Yes.
There in some of the allegations, there is an accusation that vanish mode was used for a lot of the sexting that happened, which to me, that's classic abuser behavior right there.
100%. Yeah.
Why do they want the messages to disappear as soon as they're read? Why do they need to be notified as soon as you take a screenshot on your device or your computer of the conversation that you're having?
Right.
Yeah, keep your receipts. If something doesn't look right, maybe you're misunderstanding. That's absolutely possible, but also trust your gut.
Trust your gut here. And that's what I really feel for these authors who are posting the anonymous allegations, because a lot of them were saying, that they felt like it wasn't right, but they also wanted the contract done. They wanted this opportunity. And so they just went along with it for, whatever reason. And,
we got
I really feel for them
miniature Harvey Weinstein right here in Romance Landia.
Yeah. That's essentially what it comes down to. Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. That's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to.
For sure.
And it's just so frustrating that this is why we can't have nice things. I mean,
and this hurts the presence of men in our particular community,
it does.
in romance, not necessarily in other genres where perhaps men still have the upper hand or are the predominant represented author, reader, production company, service provider, etc.
Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, this happens more frequently than I care to comment upon it.
Well, and there are a number of very well-respected female romance authors who just absolutely have no tolerance for men inserting themselves in Romancelandia in any way, shape, or form, as authors, as narrators, as anything, period.
And this is why.
I get why they feel that way. I don't agree with them, but I totally understand it.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because, and it also really devalues the work of men in this industry who aren't doing that.
Right.
And who are literally trying to make a living and to do the best that they can at the job and provide a different option for audiobook, put a different spin on. Yeah. We all want those dual POVs, right? It all helps with the fantasy of the fiction.
That's right.
These things aren't going to exist when we have these types of individuals entering the space and then acting badly. And it puts a chilling effect on others when we have these bad actors.
Yeah.
And it's just really unfortunate.
That's why it doesn't matter if we didn't do anything that wasn't consensual. It's the fact that we did anything at all.
Right.
Consensual it's the fact that or otherwise.
That even if it was unprofessional, right? Because let's say in a magic world, this was all consensual, okay? Which it's not because there's a power dynamic. So
for sure,
there's a power dynamic here that is at play. So even if these
somebody write this romantic suspense series for me, please.
Yeah. So, but let's just say that the power dynamic was not here,
right?
And that it was all consensual.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. Let's live in this magic land for a moment.
Yeah.
It's still incredibly unprofessional.
For sure.
So at the very, very least, it's incredibly unprofessional. And at the most, it's, there's a lot of words we could use, but it's creepy, it's gross, it's inappropriate, it's abusive, it's unethical. There's so many, we could go down the list. But I'm just saying, like, even based upon his own statement alone, that basically admits that at least some of these conversations occurred, but they're allegedly consensual.
Anything I did that you guys are mad about was completely consensual, so you can't be mad at me about it.
Right. Oh, bless it. So, protect yourselves.
Yes.
If you're talking to somebody that's supposed to be a professional and they have vanish mode on, no. Yeah. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Also,
red flag.
If you're getting ready to invest any kind of money into something like this, pay a lawyer for an hour or two of their time to look over the agreement for you once it's been reduced to writing. Please.
Yeah.
Please. It's an additional expense, and I understand that it hurts your business's bottom line, but I can't give you any better advice than that, because the idea that this particular company, led by this man, even if owned by his wife, was taking such a blatant advantage of authors in the contracts themselves, it's disgusting.
Right.
And it happens because of that power dynamic, first and foremost. And also the demand for this particular brand's touch on your product, right?
Right. Yeah.
And people will just accept to get what they think they need to get that next level of success, or to have great audiobook sales, or to leverage better ebook sales out of an audiobook produced by this in-demand narrator. And you end up hurting your business long term.
By not being able to get out of something.
Right.
So,
or not just fully understanding what you've agreed to until after you have a problem and you need to review the contract.
Yeah, everything's always fine until there's a problem.
Right.
Always.
Right.
So, I mean, Veronica and I, we've been best friends for 20 years.
Yes.
And I actually just found the sorority.
Stop! You found. Yeah. Oh my god! I have no idea where mine are. They're in a box somewhere.
It's literally right here. Hold on.
Oh my god! I want to see it. It's been years. Oh my god, you guys.
There we go. For those of you on YouTube, from spring 2004.
I worked so hard on that motherfucker.
It's missing a star. It's missing
a star. No!
In 20 years, I've only lost one star. But
I gotta. Is AC Moore still a thing? I gotta go find an AC Moore and get you another star.
I have a star in the basement. I don't think it's the same size though.
I know. That's why I said I gotta go to AC Moore.
I don't know if is AC Moore still a thing.
I don't know.
But yeah, this is the Heather and Veronica. So it's spring 2004. But yeah, my point. We've been best friends for 20 years.
Yep.
Veronica and I, we work together. We have a contract.
Yes, we do.
We have a contract with one another. So I don't care if it's your best friend. I don't care if it's your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, your whatever. I do not care. You need a contract because everything is fine until it isn't.
Yeah.
So that is
everything is fine. But if one day it weren't, we have something that tells us
everything's fine with us.
What we have to do.
Yes.
What we're allowed to do, what is expected of us, and how things are going to be addressed in the event that everything isn't fine.
Right. And we hope everything remains fine in perpetuity.
Forever and ever.
Amen.
For as long as Joe Arden has the rights to your audiobook.
Yes. But yeah, you need to protect yourself. You need to protect yourself. So if you've learned nothing from this podcast today, except that, please protect yourself with your contracts. Be careful where your rights are going, and be very wary of people who are just instigating that gut feeling inside of you.
Yeah. Trust that gut.
Trust your gut. So until next time, this is for Book's sake.